What if I told you that Goofy wasn't always goofy? He started out as a scruffy background extra called Dippy Dawg, a character nobody expected to last. Even Walt himself thought Goofy's cartoons were, how should I say, stupid? Yet through reinvention, resilience, and an unforgettable scream, Dippy Dawg became Goofy and Disney's most unlikely legend. Hi, I'm Dennis, and this is West of Neverland. If you like classic Disney animation and behind-the-scenes secrets, then this is the place for you. Today, we're exploring how Dippy Dawg became Goofy, one of Disney's most unlikely legends.
I ain't scared of no ghosts.
And behind his rise to fame was animator Art Babbitt, who helped define Goofy's personality with surprising realism, even as clashes with Walt during the 1941 strike put the character's fate in jeopardy. Goofy didn't begin as a star we know today. His very first appearance came in Mickey's Revue in 1932, not even as Goofy, but as a scruffy background character named Dippy Dawg. The initial design for Dippy Dawg is generally attributed to Disney artist Frank Webb. His art, paired with Pinto Colvig's silly laugh, made the character memorable from his very first moment on screen. Even that one-off appearance left a mark. Over the next few years, Goofy drifted through supporting roles, gradually becoming a familiar face. He turns up as a helper in the kitchen in the Whoopie Party, as a guffawing dancer in Klondike Kid,
But he done it wrong.
as a radio announcer in Touchdown Mickey,
What a game, what a game.
and as a stagehand in Mickey's Melodrama in 1933, an unwanted suitor in Ye Olden Days.
I know you'll learn to love me.
But by 1934, Dippy Dawg had officially received the name of Goofy. At this turning point, Art Babbitt stepped in. He turned Goofy into a character with depth and personality. He penned a now iconic analysis of the goof, describing him as an everlasting optimist, a gullible good Samaritan, a good-natured dumbbell who thinks he's smart, kind of like Kramer of the Mickey Mouse universe. That description would guide Goofy's evolution for years to come. In 1934, Goofy appeared in Orphan's Benefit as part of a lively dance ensemble featuring Clarabelle Cow and Horace Horsecollar. Then in 1935, he appeared in the band concert where he flirted a bit with the same Clarabelle Cow. Possibly a love triangle between them and Horace Horsecollar? But Goofy's real breakout came in Mickey's Service Station in 1935.
You break 'em, we fix 'em.
This is the first short where Mickey, Donald, and Goofy appeared together as a team. This trio configuration became a very popular backbone of the studio's humor, with Goofy stealing the spotlights in many of the hits like Mickey's Fire Brigade and Moving Day in 1936 and The Lonesome Ghosts in 1937. The Lonesome Ghost was always a personal favorite of mine. When I was a kid, I had a little Fisher-Price handheld movie viewer that had a 1-minute version of the short, and I loved to watch that over and over again, and it was a lot of fun. What about you? Do you have a favorite Goofy short? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which ones stick with you and why. Meanwhile, Pinto Colvig continued contributing his voice to other characters for the studio, like the Grasshopper and the Grasshopper and the Ants.
Oh, the world owes us a living.
And as the Gingerbread Man in the Cookie Carnival.
You're going to be the sweetest one of all.
Yet, it was the fusion of Colvig's vocal quirks and Babbitt's characterization that propelled Dippy Dawg into Goofy.
Oh, the world owes me a living.
A forgettable extra evolving into a rising Disney star. Through the late 30s, Goofy continued to shine in Mickey and Donald's Company in shorts like The Clock Cleaners, Boat Builders, Polar Trappers, Mickey's Trailer, and the Whalers,
You're reeled.
Goofy cemented his role as 1/3 of Disney's core comedy team. Whether dangling from a clock tower or bungling a hunt, Goofy's good-natured clumsiness reliably stole the spotlight. But behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. In 1937, Goofy's voice actor Pinto Colvig left the studio after clashing with Walt over pay. The absence was felt almost immediately. In 1939, Goofy starred in his first solo cartoon, Goofy and Wilbur. The short paired Goofy with a grasshopper sidekick in a sweet fishing story. Well, sweet if you think Goofy using the grasshopper as bait. Sweet. Then I guess so. While warmly received, Goofy's voice was supplied by Jack Bailey, not Pinto Colvig, and for many fans the difference was noticeable.
Here we are, Wilbur.
A solution to this problem came from director Jack Kinney, who in 1940 tried something new in Goofy's Glider. Instead of giving Goofy dialogue, the cartoon relied on a dry documentary-style narration by John McLeish. McLeish's overly serious descriptions of Goofy's disastrous attempts at flight, delivered as if explaining an instructional film, made the gags even funnier.
Now, launching the glider by mechanical means. Greater speed can be attained by this method. However, this system can become involved.
This style would soon become Goofy's trademark. Animator Art Babbitt played a key role here. Having just finished animating the Queen and Snow White, Babbitt brought the same attention to believable anatomy and acting into Goofy's animation. His scenes were so carefully observed that in the following year's Baggage Buster, many assumed rotoscoping had been used. But Babbitt insisted he never traced. Instead, he studied real live-action footage closely and reinterpreted it through drawing. You can spot Babbitt's influence in Goofy's Glider itself. The short was animated by multiple artists. And if you watch closely, you'll see Goofy sometimes has 4 fingers, and in other shots he has 5 fingers. That inconsistency reflects the contrast between Babbitt's style, hyper-analytical and anatomical, and the looser, more cartoony approach of the other animators. It's a fascinating way to see how different hands shape the same character in the same cartoon. Walt himself admired Babbitt's talent, but worried he was overthinking things. As he put it, Babbitt is capable of good results if you work very closely with him and not let him have his way too much. He's a very stubborn punk, but we've got to get him out of the groove he's in. And beyond stylistic debates, larger conflicts were looming. By 1941, tensions over pay and working conditions boiled over into the famous Disney animators strike, with Art Babbitt as one of the strike leaders. Walt saw this as a personal betrayal, and though Goofy's popularity with audiences was soaring, behind the scenes the character was caught in the middle of a studio divided. If you're enjoying this look back at Goofy's rise, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. I've got plenty more stories about classic Disney animation coming your way. By the early 1940s, the narrated instructional format of Goofy's Glider had blossomed into something that defined much of Goofy's remaining career, the how-to and art of shorts. The first of these came in 1941 with The Art of Skiing and The Art of Self-Defense. The Art of Skiing, through Goofy's downhill antics, introduced the world to his now iconic holler, a yodeling scream recorded by a Scandinavian skier that Walt had worked with. That sound effect became so associated with Goofy it was recycled for decades.
Watch out for that first!
Even making its way into some of Disney's live-action films. The Art of Self-Defense followed the same format, with Goofy demonstrating boxing stances and defensive moves, only to end up on the losing end of his solo fighting match, however that works. That same year, in the behind-the-scenes feature, The Reluctant Dragon, Goofy appeared in How to Ride a Horse. It wouldn't be released as a standalone short until 1950, but it proved the format worked no matter what the subject. The series truly hit its stride in 1942 with How to Play Baseball, which was released alongside The Pride of the Yankees. Audiences watched Gary Cooper play Lou Gehrig in live action and also got to watch Goofy take the field as a pitcher, batter, umpire, and outfielder,
And he's safe on first.
embodying both sides of the game with hilarious ineptitude. Later that year came the Olympic Champ, where Goofy tried his hand at many Olympic events, stumbling through hurdles and sprints with equal futility. In How to Swim, he floundered in the pool,
It is customary to have the pool filled with water.
and in How to Fish, he turned a simple casting lesson into chaos.
The perfect cast. The line sings and the poor fish is really
The format continued through 1944 with How to Be a Sailor, where Goofy proudly traced naval history all the way back from primitive rafts and warships, before accidentally launching himself through the torpedo chute and sinking the entire Japanese fleet. This was also the only World War II wartime Disney short to feature the Navy. All of the others either featured the Army or the Coast Guard. This short was historic behind the scenes as well. It marked the return of Pinto Colvig to the role of Goofy for the first time since The Whalers in 1938.
Starlight, star bright. Guys, wish I knew where I was tonight.
In the intervening years, Goofy's voice had been handled with archived audio and imitations, but now that the originator was back, the warmth and personality that had defined the character was restored.
Take it away!
That same year brought How to Play Golf,
And, oh yes, always remember, keep your eye on the ball.
and How to Play Football, where an entire stadium full of Goofies became one of the funniest sports parodies of the decade. Not every short in this period was pure how-to, though. In Victory Vehicles in 1943, Goofy took on wartime rationing, demonstrating outlandish alternatives to gasoline-powered cars, eventually landing on the pogo stick as the ideal form of gasless transportation. It was Goofy's second true wartime cartoon, the first being How to Be a Sailor, and even there the humor was in the same formula. Goofy as a well-meaning everyman, forever put out of his depth, demonstrating the topic from all sorts of angles. The animators loved making these shorts. With McLeish's narration providing the structure, they had the freedom to push gags to crazy extremes. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston recalled how animators would compete to come up with the funniest ideas, sharing sketches around the studio in a kind of friendly one-upsmanship. The how-to films became a playground of creativity, but not everyone was equally enthusiastic. Biographer Neil Gabler noted that Walt himself never cared much for the Goofy cartoons, dismissing them as stupid. While audiences and animators loved them, Walt's attention was increasingly fixed on the studio's feature films, leaving Goofy's success as something of a contradiction. The character was at his popular peak, even as Walt himself was less invested in him. As the 1940s rolled into the 1950s, Goofy's identity shifted once more, from the bumbling athlete to the reliable suburban everyman. Disney reimagined him not as a universal caricature, but as George Geef, a mild-mannered middle-class man navigating post-war life with endearing clumsiness. Fowl hunting found him bungling his way through a duck hunt. And in The Big Wash, he had to wash the enormous Dolores the elephant.
Gonna wash Dolores.
By 1950, suburban life was Goofy's stage, and in Motor Mania he became the quintessential Jekyll and Hyde motorist. The calm Mr. Walker by day, but behind the wheel he transforms into the raging Mr. Wheeler. Hold That Pose paired Goofy with a bear in one disastrous photo session. This bear would eventually turn into Humphrey the Bear,
Humphrey, just look at that mess.
another hilarious character. In Homemade Home in 1951, Goofy struggled to build a home. In Cold War, he battled with the common cold. In Tomorrow We Diet, he poked fun at fad diets. And in Get Rich Quick, he struggled with his gambling problems. In Fathers Are People, Goofy wrangled parenting woes, while No Smoking followed his doomed attempt to quit the habit. Family and work life dominated in 1952 with Father's Lion, Man's Best Friend, Teachers Are People, 2 Weeks Vacation, and How to Be a Detective. each placing Goofy in scenarios that every adult could recognize, and then always tripping them into chaos. The run closed in 1953 with some of his most sitcom-like outings, Father's Day Off,
Friendly, Gus.
For Whom the Bulls Toll, Father's Weekend,
Drive faster, Daddy!
How to Dance, and How to Sleep, reflecting both the optimism and pressures of America's booming middle class and expanding suburbs. By the 1950s, Disney's focus had shifted away from theatrical shorts towards television and feature films. Mickey and Donald were appearing less often on the big screen, and Goofy's run would wind down too with How to Sleep in 1953. But Goofy wasn't quite finished. In the early 1960s, director Jack Kinney, who had helped define the how-to era 2 decades earlier, brought Goofy back for one last hurrah in Aquamania in 1961. This short followed Goofy as he bought a motorboat and attempted to go on an innocent boating excursion with his son,
Stand by to cast off, matey.
Aye, aye, sir.
and promptly getting entangled in a water skiing race with predictably chaotic results. Aquamania was nominated for an Academy Award, a fitting acknowledgement for a character who had been making audiences laugh for nearly 30 years. Goofy also appeared in a pair of educational films, Freeway Phobia and Goofy's Freeway Troubles, in 1965. In them, he became a kind of safety instructor, teaching children and families about the rules of the road through his own bumbling misadventures.
This is a serious hazard. But it can be overcome by occasional stops off the road for a moment's rest and refreshment.
These films, while far from his earlier slapstick shorts, kept him relevant for a new generation. And though not part of his core theatrical run, Goofy's presence lingered. He returned to theaters briefly in Mickey's Christmas Carol,
Scrooge, don't you recognize me?
in The Prince and the Pauper,
I'd have a happy place next to the fireplace.
and also in The Three Musketeers. He also appeared in a short, How to Hook Up Your Home Theater, in 2007, a modern revival of the classic how-to formula. From Dippy Dawg in 1932 to Aquamania in 1961, Goofy had traveled an incredible arc: ensemble sidekick, solo star, awkward training instructor, suburban dad, and finally, a nostalgic icon. While Walt Disney himself may not have loved the Goofy cartoons, audiences and animators embraced them, and the character's enduring popularity proved his versatility. Goofy may have started out as a background gag, but over 3 decades of shorts became something more, a legend in his own right, and Disney's unlikeliest star. And if you'd like to see how another member of Disney's Fab Five found his place in the spotlight, check out my deep dive on Pluto's rise from sidekick to star, and I'll see you real soon.